The alert didn't even come with a phone call. It came as a quiet line of text on my bank app while I was still wearing black and still waking up reaching for a body that wasn't there anymore. Account balance updated. I stared at the screen, waiting for the number to load like it was going to fix itself if I gave it time. It didn't. My husband's life insurance payout, $1 million, was gone. Not pending, not processing, gone. For a second, my brain tried to protect me with denial. Maybe the app was down. Maybe it moved to a different sub-account. Maybe the insurance company reversed it. Anything that didn't require me to accept what my eyes were seeing. Then another notification appeared beneath it. Outgoing wire completed. My hands went cold. My throat tightened. But I didn't scream into my empty kitchen. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't call my mother to cry. Because grief already makes you feel powerless. And I could feel something else underneath my grief. Into pattern. My parents had been circling the payout since the funeral. Not openly. Not in a way that sounded like theft. They did it the way they always did. With concern that had teeth. "You can't be trusted with that kind of money right now," my mother had said softly at the reception, hand on my shoulder like she was comforting me. "You're fragile." My father had nodded like it was objective. "People make mistakes when they're emotional," he'd said. "Let family help." My sister, Brooke, had stood behind them in a new coat she couldn't afford, lips pressed into a pretend sad line, eyes flicking toward my purse like she wanted to see my phone screen. I hadn't argued then. I'd barely spoken. I just wanted to survive the day. Now I was standing alone in my kitchen with my husband's money erased, and I understood what their help had really meant. I put my phone down and stared at the counter until the shaking in my hands stopped. Then I opened my laptop. We logged into my bank portal and pulled up the transaction details, wire amount, the exact payout, receiving bank, a domestic institution I didn't recognize, receiving entity, Seaside Bay Holdings, LLC. My pulse hit once, hard, then steadied, because I didn't need to guess who was behind an LLC with a name like that. I needed proof. I called the bank's fraud line first, not my parents, not my sister, not a friend. The bank. A calm voice answered after 2 rings. "Fraud prevention." "And how can I help you?" My beneficiary account had an outgoing wire I did not authorize, I said, voice flat. "I need the wire recall initiated and I need the trace details." There was a pause in typing. "Ma'am," the agent said carefully, "the wire shows as authorized on file." "I did not authorize it," I repeated. "According to the notes," she said, "we received executed forms with signature verification." My jaw tightened. "What forms?" I asked. "Wire authorization and a beneficiary account maintenance form," she replied. "Maintenance. The word people hide crimes inside." "Email me the documentation and the signature comparison record," I said. "We can't email sensitive documents," she said. "You'll need to come into a branch with identification." "Fine," I replied. "Which branch handled it?" Another pause. "It was processed through our private client desk downtown," she said. Downtown. On the same branch my parents loved because it had soft chairs and people who called them sir and ma'am with respect. I ended the call, grabbed my ID, grabbed my husband's death certificate copy from the folder I kept by the door, because grief turns paperwork into survival, and drove. On the way, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother, checking in. "You okay today?" I didn't answer, because she wasn't checking in. She was checking whether I'd noticed yet. At the bank, or in the lobby smelled like polished wood and expensive perfume. A greeter smiled too brightly, then saw my face and the black dress, and softened into professional concern. "I need the private client desk," I said. "Now." A few minutes later, a man in a navy suit introduced himself as Graham Voss, branch manager. He led me into a glass-walled office and closed the door gently like he was trying to protect my feelings. I didn't need my feelings protected. I needed the wire trail. "Ms. Carter?" he asked. I corrected him immediately, calm. "It's Naomi Hale." He nodded. "Okay, what can I do for you?" "My husband's life insurance payout was deposited into my beneficiary account," I said. "It vanished overnight by outgoing wire. I did not authorize it. I want the wire trace, the submitted forms, and the identity verification logs." Graham's fingers moved across his keyboard. His expression stayed neutral at first, routine. Then his eyes narrowed slightly, and he clicked into a deeper tab. He scrolled once, and his face changed in a way that made my stomach tighten. Not panic, recognition. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "this transaction is marked as high sensitivity." I kept my voice even. "Show me." He hesitated. "Before I do, I need to verify your identity again," he said. I slid my ID across. He scanned it, compared my photo, then clicked. The wire record opened with a timeline. Request received, forms uploaded, signature accepted, wire released. He turned the monitor toward me. At the top was the wire destination, Seaside Bay Holdings, LLC. Below it, a small line that made the room feel colder. Authorized by Power of Attorney, on file. My throat tightened, but my voice stayed flat. "I never gave anyone power of attorney," I said. Graham swallowed. "The system shows it was added yesterday," he said quietly. "At 4:12 p.m. Yesterday. Or the day my parents had brought soup and sat too comfortably in my living room while I stared at the wall." "Who added it?" I asked. Graham clicked into the log, and his cursor hovered for a second, like he didn't want to say the next part out loud. Then he turned the screen slightly more toward me and said, "The POA was submitted by—" Graham clicked again, and the log expanded like a hidden drawer. He didn't look at me when he spoke. He looked at the screen, voice quieter now, yet as if the building itself might hear him. "Submitted by Thomas Hale," he said. "Your father." For a moment, the office felt too small, not because of panic, because of how clean the betrayal was. My father hadn't guessed a password. He hadn't gotten lucky. He had walked into a bank and inserted himself into my life like he belonged there. I kept my voice level. "Show me the file that added it," I said. Graham's jaw tightened slightly. He opened the attachment list, scanned documents, on a notary page, an ID verification sheet, and a signature comparison report. On the screen, my name sat above a signature that tried to imitate mine. It wasn't even close. They got my slant wrong. They added a loop I never use. They wrote my middle initial wrong. The kind of forgery that only works if everyone in the room wants it to be true. Graham cleared his throat. "The notary block indicates remote notarization," he said carefully. "Out of state." "Remote," I repeated. "Just so someone sat somewhere and pretended to be me." He nodded once, eyes still on the screen. "Yes." I didn't yell. I didn't ask how the bank could allow it. That conversation comes later, when you have leverage. Right now, I needed the timeline. "Pull the identity verification log," I said. He clicked into a tab labeled KYC/verification notes. A list populated. Timestamps, reviewer initials, a pass/fail marker, a short comment. Graham scrolled once, then stopped. "Ma'am," he said, own voice even lower. "The verification shows manual review," meaning it failed initially, I said. He hesitated, then nodded. It flagged inconsistencies. "What inconsistencies?" I asked. He opened the comment. "Photo ID image quality poor. Secondary contact confirmed. Manual override approved. Approved by who?" Graham's cursor hovered a fraction of a second before he clicked. Then he turned the screen toward me again. Manual override approved by Elaine Hale. My mother. And of course it was my mother. My father pushed the document in with his smug confidence. My mother played the soft voice on the phone. The "I'm just helping my grieving daughter" tone that makes people stop asking questions. My hands went cold, but my posture stayed still. "Yesterday at 4:12, I said. "That's when the POA was added." Graham nodded. "That's the time stamp," he confirmed. I exhaled slowly through my nose. "Now pull the wire," I said. "Full trace. Who initiated it, what internal desk released it, and the final beneficiary path." Graham's eyes flicked up. "You want the audit trail," he said. "Yes," I replied. "Every hop." He clicked into the wire module and the screen changed into something colder. Routing numbers, compliance codes, release approvals. He scrolled, then pointed. "The wire request was submitted under the POA profile," he said, "released by our private client operations desk." "And where did it go?" I asked, still calm. Then he clicked into the receiving details. "Seaside Bay Holdings, LLC," he read. "Account ending in 806. "That's just the first stop," I said. "Keep going." Graham paused. "There's an addendum," he said, and opened a linked document. A settlement statement, not a bank settlement, a closing settlement, the kind used for real estate. He scanned it and his face tightened. "What is it?" I asked. Graham swallowed. "It's tied to a property closing," he said quietly. "Or a waterfront condominium." My throat tightened, but my voice stayed flat. "Put the address line on the screen," I said. He turned the monitor slightly more toward me. A luxury building name, a unit number, a city on the coast, and a purchase price that felt like a punch, even though I'd already lost the money. $950,000. I didn't need to ask who lived there. I could already see the champagne bubbles in my father's glass. Graham looked up at me carefully. "Ma'am," he said, "this looks like your funds were used as the source of closing." I nodded once. "My sister," I said quietly. He didn't confirm it out loud, but his eyes did. I sat very still and let the grief in my chest settle into something colder. My husband's death had been turned into a down payment, not by strangers, by the people who raised me. "Print everything," I said. "The POA submission packet, the verification notes, the manual override record, the wire audit trail, and the linked settlement statement." Graham hesitated. "Some of these are internal." "Then give me what you're allowed to give me," I said evenly, "and open a formal fraud case. Right now." He nodded once, finally fully out of customer service mode. "I'm escalating to our fraud investigations unit," he said. "They'll assign a case number." "Good," I replied. "Add this note. The signer is deceased. This is a beneficiary account tied to a life insurance payout. As I want that in the case summary." Graham blinked. "Your husband?" "Yes," I said. "And my parents used that timing." He typed. His fingers moved faster now, as if he could feel the liability. While he worked, my mind replayed yesterday afternoon. My parents in my living room. My mother setting a soup container on my counter like she was the hero. My father glancing at my mail pile, asking casual questions that weren't casual. "Did the insurance pay yet?" I'd answered without thinking. And I'd been tired. I'd been broken. "Yes," I'd whispered. "It hit my account." My mother had squeezed my hand like comfort and said, "Good. You won't have to worry." Now I understood what she meant. I wouldn't have to worry because they planned to worry for me. With my money. Graham's computer chimed. A new window opened. He stared at it for a long second, then straightened in his chair. "The fraud case is created," he said. "Who's assigned?" I asked. He glanced down. "Senior investigator," he said. But there's something else." He clicked again, and a red banner appeared across the top of his screen. Bold, institutional, not meant for customers. His breathing changed slightly. "What?" I asked. Graham didn't answer right away. He stared at the banner like it had just turned the floor to ice. Then he slowly rotated the monitor toward me and said, "I need you to see this." Across the top, in harsh red letters, it was one line, "Federal Hold, Active. The red banner stayed pinned across the top of Graham's screen like a verdict. He didn't touch his mouse for a second, like moving too fast might make it worse. "Explain what that means," I said, voice even. Graham swallowed. "It means law enforcement has placed a hold on the funds connected to this wire," he said carefully. "It restricts movement. It restricts disclosure. It restricts everything." "So the money is frozen," I said. "Not in your account," he corrected quietly. "It left your beneficiary account when the wire released, but the receiving side, either the beneficiary account or the escrow layer, is under a federal hold." My throat tightened, but my posture stayed still. "Who placed it?" I asked. He shook his head once. "I can't see the agency name," he said. "Even if I could, I'm not authorized to disclose it. The system only shows the status and the escalation path." "Then show me the path," I said. Graham clicked into a small note icon under the banner. A box opened with a timestamp and a single instruction line. He stared at it, then rotated the screen toward me. "Hold placed, 7:19 a.m. Directive, route all inquiries to Financial Crimes Liaison. Preserve records. Do not notify subject. Do not notify subject." My hands went cold. "They weren't supposed to tell me," I said quietly. Graham's jaw tightened. "You're the account holder," he said, "and this started in your beneficiary account. But yes, there are restrictions on what we can say." I nodded once. "Then don't say anything you can't. Just answer this. Is the condo closing already complete?" Graham clicked into the linked settlement statement again, then opened the wire disbursement timeline. His eyes narrowed. "The buyer side funding was initiated," he said, "but the final disbursement shows—" He stopped mid-sentence. "What?" I asked. Graham's voice dropped. "Pending," he said. "Not reversed. Not failed. Pending. And because a federal hold doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it just looks like a door that won't open." "So Brooke doesn't have keys," I said, more statement than question. Graham didn't answer directly. He just said, "The seller side release is not showing as completed." My lungs loosened by a fraction. Not relief, focus. It meant we were still in time to stop more damage. "What triggered the hold?" I asked. Graham's eyes flicked up. "Sometimes it's because the receiving account is already under review," he said carefully. "Sometimes it's because our fraud unit escalated. Sometimes it's because there's a bigger case." Bigger case. I stared at the line on the screen again. Do not notify subject. Subject could mean my parents, or it could mean the LLC, or it could mean the person they were trying to pay. "Is Seaside Bay Holdings already flagged?" I asked. Graham hesitated, and then he clicked into the beneficiary profile, just long enough to confirm what he was allowed to see. A second banner appeared on a different tab. Not red. Worse. A dull gray box with institutional language, enhanced review, law enforcement sensitive. Graham closed his eyes for half a second, then opened them. "Yes," he said quietly, "this entity is not new to our system." I didn't blink. "So my parents wired my husband's payout into an account that federal agencies were already watching." Graham's voice stayed low. "It appears that way." My grief sat in my chest like wet concrete, but the part of my brain that still worked, the part that could carry me through paperwork when I couldn't carry myself through mornings, locked onto a single thought. They didn't just steal from me. They stepped into something bigger than them. And they did it with their names on the forms. "Or, Graham," I said, "I want a complete preservation packet. Everything you showed me, every time stamp, every document image, every internal note you're allowed to print." He nodded, already moving. "I can produce a customer-facing fraud summary and certified copies of the submitted POA packet," he said. "Internal notes are restricted, but I can include the time of the federal hold and the case reference." Do that, I said. And I want the bank to send a formal notice to the title company that the funds are disputed and subject to an active fraud investigation. He paused. That will trigger alarms, he said carefully. Good, I replied. I want alarms. Graham typed. A printer behind him came alive, feeding paper through like it was hungry. He collected pages and assembled them into a thick stack, then added a cover sheet on bank letterhead. A fraud case summary. Beneficiary wire dispute account. Holder Naomi Hale incident. Type unauthorized POA+. Wire status. Federal hold active. He slid it across the desk. Then he did something I didn't expect. He opened a drawer, pulled out a plain manila folder, placed the stack inside, and sealed it with a strip of tamper tape. Then he signed across the tape with his name and date, like chain of custody mattered even before law enforcement asked. This, he said quietly, is what I can give you without violating our protocols. I touched the folder lightly, not because it was fragile, because it felt like the first solid thing I'd held since the funeral. What happens next? I asked. Graham exhaled slowly. Our financial crimes liaison will coordinate with the agency that placed the hold, he said. We'll comply with any subpoena or preservation request. And me? I asked. He looked at me for a beat. You can file a police report, he said. But given the federal hold, this is already beyond local. I nodded once. I'm not going local, I said. Graham's eyes tightened in a way that wasn't judgment. It was recognition. I need one more thing, I added. The exact time my mother approved the manual override. He clicked back into the verification notes. 4:16, he said. Call recorded on our system. The reviewer noted mother assisting grieving daughter. I felt my jaw tighten. Print that line, I said. He did. A small or ugly sentence on a clean white page. My mother's lie turned into bank language. Graham placed it in the folder. Then his desk phone lit up. Not his cell, not an internal extension, a line labeled liaison. Graham stared at it like it had weight. He answered, voice formal. Graham Voss. He listened for 3 seconds. His posture changed. Yes, he said, she's here. My skin went cold again. Not fear, anticipation. Graham's eyes flicked to me, and he covered the receiver with his palm. Miss, I Hale, he said quietly. Our financial crimes liaison is on the line, and he paused as if choosing the safest words. They asked if you can remain in the building, he finished. Someone is coming. My throat tightened. Who? I asked. Graham uncovered the receiver. Yes, he said into the phone. Understood. He hung up slowly. Then he looked at me and said the sentence that made the room feel suddenly smaller than it was. An FBI agent is downstairs, he said. He asked for you by name. I didn't stand up fast. I didn't clutch my folder like a weapon. I simply nodded once and said, Take me to him. Graham walked me out of the glass office and toward a side hallway that led to a smaller conference suite. Private, quiet, the kind of room banks use when the problem isn't customer service anymore. A man was waiting inside, mid-40s, plain suit, no tie. Calm eyes that didn't scan for drama. They scanned for details. He stood when I entered, not polite like a banker, precise like someone clocking a witness. Naomi Hale? He asked. Yes, I replied. He held up a small badge case just long enough for me to register the gold letters. Special Agent Marcus Riley, he said. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Graham stayed near the door, hands folded, trying to look invisible. Agent Riley nodded at the folder in my hands. You have documentation, he said. I do, I replied. And then I placed the sealed manila folder on the table in front of him without sliding it dramatically. Riley didn't open it immediately. He asked one question first. Did you confront your parents? He said. No, I replied. He nodded once, like that was the correct answer. Good, he said. People warn each other. We prefer they don't. I kept my voice steady. Why is there a federal hold, I asked, and why is the FBI here? Riley didn't over-explain. He spoke in controlled facts. The receiving entity on your wire, he said, Seaside Bay Holdings, LLC, has been on our radar in a broader financial crimes investigation. When a 7-figure wire hits a monitored node, it triggers alerts. Your bank did the right thing by escalating. I felt the air change in my chest. So they were already being watched, I said. Yes, Riley replied, and your funds are now part of an active federal hold while we determine the path and intent. He glanced at Graham. Mr. Voss, he said, thank you. We'll take it from here. Graham nodded quickly. Of course, he said, then left the room like he'd been holding his breath for an hour. Riley sat and finally broke the tamper seal on the folder. He pulled out the documents and laid them out in a clean line. The POA packet, the override log, the wire audit trail, the settlement statement tied to the condo closing. He didn't react like a person seeing family betrayal. He reacted like an investigator seeing a pattern. Your father submitted the POA, he said, reading. Your mother approved the override. Wire went to a flagged LLC. Funds intended for a real estate closing. Sister is the beneficiary of the purchase. He looked up. Do you know why they used Seaside Bay Holdings? He asked. I shook my head once. I didn't even know it existed until this morning, I said. Riley nodded, then pulled a small notebook from his jacket. We'll determine that, he said. For now, I need you to answer a few questions cleanly. I didn't blink. Go ahead. Your husband's name, he said. I said it. Date of death, he said. I said it. Insurance carrier and policy number, he said. I gave it. Did you sign any power of attorney? He asked. No, I replied. Did you ever authorize your parents to manage your finances? He asked. No, I said again. They didn't have access. They had proximity. Riley's eyes narrowed slightly. Approval, not pity. And then he asked the question that told me he already suspected the answer. Where are your parents right now? He asked. I stared at the table for 1 second, then answered honestly. Probably with my sister, I said. At the waterfront condo. Riley nodded once. Do you know the address? I did. Of course I did. Brooke had posted the building's lobby chandelier on her story last night, like it was her achievement. I recited the address. Riley wrote it down. Then he stood, calm. Ms. Dehale, he said, I'm going to be clear with you. Your situation began as identity theft and wire fraud against you, but it may be tied to a larger laundering channel. That's why the hold is active. My throat tightened. So what happens to my money? I asked. Riley didn't promise. He didn't soften. He gave me the only honest answer. We attempt recovery and restitution through legal process, he said. But first we stop movement. I nodded once. The closing is pending, I said. The seller's side release wasn't completed. Riley's eyes sharpened. That matters, he said. He took out his phone and typed a short message, then looked up. One more thing, he said. Your parents signed documents under penalty of perjury. That creates leverage. I swallowed slowly. What do you need from me? Riley looked at the folder again. A sworn statement, he said, and permission to coordinate with your bank's liaison as the victim account holder. I'll sign, I said. He slid a form toward me. It wasn't dramatic, just a federal victim statement form with boxes and lines. I filled it out carefully, handwriting steady. Date, time, facts. No adjectives. When I finished, Riley took it, scanned it, and placed it back in his folder. Then he looked at me and said, You did the right thing coming to the bank. Now I need you to do the hardest thing. I didn't flinch. What? Stay silent, he said. Don't call them, don't text them, don't post anything. And if they suspect federal involvement, they'll try to move assets or coordinate stories. I nodded. I can do that, I said. Riley stood. Good, he said. because we're going to speak to them before they speak to each other." He walked to the door, then paused and looked back at me. "Your sister's condo closing," he said, "was flagged this morning when the funds hit the monitored LLC. The title company has been told to pause disbursement pending verification." My chest loosened by a fraction, and then Riley added very calmly, "And your father's name is on more than just your wire packet." My stomach tightened again. "What do you mean?" Riley held my gaze. "I mean," he said, "this isn't the first time he's used forged authority to move money." He opened the door. "Ms. Hale," he said over his shoulder, "we're going to your sister's building now." I didn't go with Agent Riley, or not because I wanted distance, because he told me to stay silent and let the system do what it does best when it finally has clean evidence. So I stayed in the bank's private conference room while he moved. Graham returned 10 minutes later with a bottle of water and the same careful face people wear when they've stepped into something bigger than customer service. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "I'm functioning," I replied. He nodded once, like he understood the difference. Not an hour passed with the kind of silence that feels loud. My phone stayed face down on the table. No texts, no calls, nothing from my parents, because they still believed they controlled the narrative. Then Graham's desk phone rang again. He answered, listened, and his expression changed. "Yes," he said. "Understood." He hung up and looked at me. "Ms. Hale," he said, voice low, "the liaison says the hold is expanding." "Expanding," I repeated. He nodded. "Additional related accounts are being restricted." I didn't ask which ones. I already knew where this would go. The condo closing account, the LLC, any funnel my parents had been using. My phone buzzed at that exact moment, like the universe was syncing the timeline on purpose. A text from my father. "Bank glitch. Don't panic, we'll fix it." I stared at the message without replying, because he didn't know it wasn't a glitch. He was about to find out it was a net. 20 minutes later, my sister called. I let it ring out. Then she texted, "Why aren't you answering?" "Mom's freaking out. The condo people say funds can't be verified." I didn't reply. And then my mother called. I let it ring too, because silence was the only safe move. Any response would warn them that the bank wasn't their playground anymore. Another hour passed. Then the bank's conference room door opened, and Agent Riley stepped back in. He didn't look triumphant. He looked precise, like a surgeon finishing a procedure. Behind him was another man in plain clothes carrying a slim laptop bag. "Ms. Hale," Riley said, "this is Special Agent Linton, Financial Crimes Task Force." Agent Linton nodded once, neutral. Riley sat across from me and placed a thin stack of papers on the table. "Here's what happened," he said. He tapped the first page. "Your wire hit Seaside Bay Holdings," he said. "It triggered a federal alert. We contacted the title company handling your sister's condo closing. They placed an immediate pause on disbursement." He tapped the second page. "We contacted the bank holding the receiving account for Seaside Bay Holdings. They complied with a hold. Funds are frozen pending seizure proceedings." I felt my throat loosen by a fraction. "So the money is still there," I said quietly. Riley didn't promise. He corrected with precision. "A portion is still there," he said. Enough to stop the closing, enough to establish the path, but your father attempted secondary movement." "Where?" I asked. Riley glanced at Linton, then back to me. "He tried to move remaining funds through a second LLC at 8:03, he said. "That attempt failed because the hold expanded." My jaw tightened. "So he knew," I said. "He felt something," Riley replied. "Banks don't freeze 7 figures quietly. People notice." He slid another page forward. "We went to your sister's building," he said. "We interviewed the title officer and obtained the settlement file. We then contacted building security and obtained lobby footage." I didn't ask what the footage showed. I could already see my parents holding champagne like it was a trophy. Riley didn't make me guess. He gave me the clearest line. "Your father and mother presented themselves as your authorized representatives," he said. "They attempted to pressure the title company into releasing funds despite the pause." "Did it work?" I asked. "No," Riley said simply, "because the hold was active and the title officer documented the interaction." He paused, then added, "Your sister was present." I felt my stomach tighten again. "Was she involved?" I asked. Riley didn't overstate. "She benefited," he said. "We're determining knowledge and intent." Agent Linton opened his laptop and turned it slightly toward Riley. On showing a list of entries with timestamps and account identifiers blurred. Riley nodded once, then looked at me again. "Now," he said, "here's the part that matters for you long term." He tapped another page. "Your father's name appears on additional suspicious transactions through Seaside Bay Holdings going back months," he said. "Your wire wasn't the first, it was the largest." My chest tightened. "So he's been doing this," I said. "Yes," Riley replied. "Which means we're not treating this as family theft. We're treating it as part of a financial crimes pattern." He leaned forward slightly. "Ms. Hale, do you want to pursue restitution through the criminal case and a parallel civil action?" "Yes," I said immediately. No hesitation. Riley nodded, satisfied. "Good," he said, "because the fastest path to recovery is often through seizure and restitution orders once charges are filed." "And my parents?" I asked. "What happens to them?" Riley didn't celebrate. He stated, "Your father will be interviewed under warning," he said. "Your mother as well. Based on what we have, POA forgery, identity impersonation, wire fraud attempt, and pattern activity, charges are likely." My throat tightened. "And the condo?" I asked. Riley's eyes stayed steady. "The condo closing is not happening," he said. "The seller has been notified funds are under federal hold. The purchase contract will collapse unless legitimate funding appears." I exhaled slowly. Brooke's waterfront fantasy was dissolving in real time. Agent Linton closed his laptop and said one sentence, calm, clinical. "Your sister is already trying to list the condo furniture for sale online," he said. I blinked once. "How do you know that?" Riley answered flat. "Because when people feel the net tighten, they try to liquidate anything they can still touch." I sat still and let the words settle. My husband's death had been treated like an opportunity. They'd tried to convert grief into real estate before the ink on the death certificate felt dry. Riley stood and slid a card across the table. "Victim specialist contact," he said, "and my direct number. If they contact you, do not engage. Forward it to us." I took it, nodded once. In the weeks that followed, the federal hold turned into formal seizure proceedings. The receiving LLC account was frozen, and the title company's pause prevented the condo disbursement from completing. The bank produced the POA submission packet, the manual override log, and the wire audit trail under subpoena, and the pattern of prior suspicious transfers tied to my father expanded the case beyond my single loss. My father was charged for forgery-related and wire fraud offenses connected to the unauthorized POA and the attempted movement of the insurance funds. Warren, my mother, faced charges tied to identity impersonation and verification override participation. The condo purchase collapsed, and the seller pursued damages against the parties who presented fraudulent funding. A restitution order was filed as part of the federal case, and I began parallel civil action to recover what was not immediately seized. Grief didn't get easier, but the feeling of being erased did. Because the one thing my parents didn't account for was that banks keep logs, and federal holds don't care who raised you. In the comments, tell me this. If your family stole your late spouse's payout while you were grieving, would you confront them right away? Or would you do what I did and let a wire trace and one folder speak for you? If you want more stories like this, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.